has been a minute since I've worked on this, and there's a fair few things I still need to work out, fix some bugs on, that I want to fix in this video. At the end of this video, I'm hoping that this thing will be pretty much almost done mechanically. There's still some visual things I want to do to it later, but mechanically, it should be done. The things I have to do are finish welding up these headers. Hopefully that'll fix the transfer case shifter. And I think that about covers it. So I'm simply just going to take off this cutoff wheel, do little slices, just kind of pinch it together. There we go. So now we have a flange here, 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 and one in the back. Now I'm going to try and pinch those together. I'm going to do that simply by taking this guy around and just kind of pinching. Okay, seems to be working. Yeah, I cut this one way too big. This one was actually more around the size it needed to be. There is still a lot of spring back. Don't get me wrong, the gap here is still way smaller than here. Let me give you a better comparison. You can see on this one how there's so much of a gap around it. If we look at this one, not that much of a gap. You can really see how much it tapers in right there. So now I'm just going to run around to the other three to do that off camera. Okay, as you can see, they have all been now cut, slotted, and bent in a little bit. They didn't bend as far as I thought they would, I'm going to be honest. But if I just put this on here like that while I'm giving it an initial tack, that'll probably do exactly what I'm looking for. So good. So now next step, I need to tack weld all of those. I haven't done TIG in, I don't know, 4 months. So this will probably be terrible, but, you know, get back used to it. This is just gonna go bad, so I'm just gonna skip. Okay, so I've finished welding up the front, but the fronts are what look like they're sealed. I just have the backs of them to do, and I can't do that while this is on the motorcycle still, so I need to take the manifold off. Now, I'm worried about the manifold not fitting back onto the engine again because of the heat warping it. So let me pop this manifold off and see how bad it warped, and then weld the back of it. This should just... There we go. Now my concern is, will it go back like that? Actually, fairly close. Good. Heck yeah. That was what I was worried about. It might not if I finish welding the other side, but it is a risk I am willing to take because I mean, what else am I really going to do? Get the inside of this welded. You see that? Not welded. Welded. Since it's raining outside, I'm doing it inside. Prepare for this to be terrible again. It's all gonna get covered in heat wrap anyway, so more for learning how to do TIG than showing off, because this is not worth showing off. Okay, is there just like an on button for this darkening helmet? Because it's flickering on, off, on, off, on, off, and I can't see anything right now. Anyway, but just more of this. So you probably see it's not on the table anymore, and that is because right there, I remounted it. Previously, when I welded that thing, every single time it warps really badly and it's not the same shape anymore. And lo and behold, it did it again. So if we look here, you can see those are the front four. If we go on the back, you can see that they are all welded in. They don't look great. Then again, I'm going to put heat wrap on this, so it will be fine. You won't see any of that. And you can see this is pulled all the way up and in. I don't have both bolts on yet, just one of them, but they are all in there. So no worries there, and the bottom clamp also appears to be seating just fine. So I'm quite happy about that. So until the heat wrap gets on this, I can move to the next step. So while the heat wrap takes 18 years to get here, I'm going to take out the brake master cylinder and replace it with these two identical ones. Why these two? Because that one doesn't move enough fluid. It creates enough pressure, just not enough fluid. Okay, so when I press the pedal down, all the calipers close, but then they don't have enough fluid left to actually compress them. So I have two of them, so we can get more fluid moved. And the reason why not get like a bigger one is because these are really, really small and compact, and they have the remote reservoir to them. So somehow I'm going to have to pair these up together and sink them in. Now, in terms of hoses, I have an idea. These are the brakes for the Bandit, the front brakes, and as you can see here, we have a Junction that goes from the 10mm banjo to these two 10mm banjo bolts. Now this is for the caliper, but they're brake lines. It doesn't really matter which way you run them in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect this banjo bolt here, and I'm going to disconnect these two here, and this is going to go to the two masters, and then this is going to go to the distribution block. But these are the hoses and the splitter I end up needing, so I'm going to steal it off of here. So you can see how I have both calipers separated from the brake lines there, and this does look very similar to how it looked before, but you can see I've now doubled up the brake master cylinders in there. Now, this took me longer than I expected just because these have imperial increments, so these are 1/4 inch. You know, this Suzuki stuff is all in metric, so a lot of this is M6, so a lot of drilling out stuff. If it doesn't end up working, I can modify that. I can tighten up a lot of this stuff and maybe reinforce it. So I'm going to test this in the four-wheeler, see if the mounts need to be moved at all, move them, and then put on the old line onto the new master cylinders. So let's take a look inside here. You can see those are the tops of the two master cylinders. You can see back there, those are the two cylinders. When I push this down, those go in. And this has a lot more force on it than it did before, which is good. I still have to brake bleed a little bit. I did a little bit, but not much. You can see there is the manifold block, and that goes down there to the manifold block, to the two front, and to the rear one here. A lot of fluid is coming out of this one, out of the bleeder. Not much on that one, not much on this one. Not too sure about that, but I'm getting some braking in there. So I got a new bracket welded in here. I had welded a new bracket also over here that you can't really see it. That is in, and I just have to brake bleed a lot better. So now I can move on to the next step. So this is the low range linkage right here. That's the low range lever that goes with that. Now this guy and this guy is the forward high and reverse linkage. And then this is the pivot point that I made before. However, this is where I had the pivot point going to the front. This one was going to the back. As you can see, that's about a 2-to-1 ratio, because the 1-to-1, it wasn't moving the lever in the back enough. So I figured, you know, give it a little bit of mechanical advantage for the distance by making this one shorter, so a little push makes the outer one go further, aka the rear one move further. But that was too much. The actual shifter doesn't get all the way into location, so I'm going to cut the difference a little bit and put another hole in right there, and then reinstall it. It's all tightened in, so now that's reverse, neutral, forward. The forward goes right into place. Neutral goes right in. The reverse is a little sticky. It's probably just because the transmission isn't in like the proper spot. There it goes, like that. Now it's fully in. That's out, and that's forward. Perfect. So that actually is shifting way better. That's actually going into place. Before, this guy would do like this, and then go right back, and that would be forward. And so figuring out if you're in forward or reverse was an absolute pain. So now that is actually forward. That is actually neutral. That is actually reverse. Because this transfer case is technically a transmission, whatever, because the CVT used to be the clutch version of it, it doesn't have a clutch inside of it. So the chain has to be spinning a little bit for it to actually engage, which is why I have to rock it back and forth a little bit, which is going to be kind of a pain considering I do have to like let the motorcycle clutch out a little bit. To change gears, I can't change gears while I'm stationary. I have to bump it a little bit, if you know what I mean. So that is a little bit of a pain, but at least this definitely feels better. So, okay, so that's good. So I noticed when driving up and down the driveway a little bit that I did off camera, I realized that when at slow speeds, it gallops in the rear. Not the front, but from the rear. It kind of does this kind of thing. But if I just full throttle it, it kind of smooths out. So I'm wondering if there's something in the transmission that's doing something weird. As far as I'm aware, it's a solid connection between both CV axles. It could be wrong, but that's doing something weird. Additionally, in testing earlier, that's the brakes, you know, the two master cylinders. But you notice that the pedal is still mounted securely. So this casting right there and this casting are no longer one piece. As you can see, there's a split right there and right here. So that's excellent. So somehow I'm either going to have to repair that, but this is aluminum and I can't aluminum TIG because I don't know how. I've tried, it doesn't work. If this isn't aluminum, then I guess I can try welding to it. I don't think it is though. But whatever it is cast, so that was a fracture point. It is securely mounted down here, so it's weird that it happened now. I wonder if just two cylinders was too much brake pressure to, you know, too much force on it to let it actually split. but that's funny. Like I showed a second ago, the wheels are kind of weirdly shaped. I don't know if that's within reason, but it was galloping a lot more than the little bit that I had shown there. But now, it starts up, the engine's warm, it runs really good, low end and high end. So I can throttle it, just the low end actually is terrible when it's cold. But now it's warm, like I said, not an issue. So, additionally, you can see here, I built the gas pedal, however janky that it is. This is a piece of a attic ladder. So this is the top hinge that gets mounted to the beams in the ceiling. So I've cut off an angle piece here and I welded on this little bracket. And this spring, I believe, was from the kickstand. So I shortened the length of that, added another hook to it, and I just hooked it around these holes here that were rivets. That spring is way too strong, but honestly, that's plenty fine. You can see at the top of here, I took a Dremel and I cut a slot in it. And then I drilled a hole straight through it. So this guy can kind of slip in at this angle up here, and then it rolls down and over. This guy isn't really secured in there right now, but it's just going through that hole. There is this little bracket right here that I can screw it in that I'll probably end up doing. But for right now, that is plenty good. Like I said, it's plenty strong pulling up, and that's fine. So clutch works great, gas works great. I'm probably going to change how this lever angle goes because that's quite high. But brakes don't exist anymore because it's just broken up there. I didn't even get to really bleed them yet, so that's awesome. So the heat wrap just arrived for the front exhaust, but like I said, this is really hot right now because it's been running, so I have to wait for this to cool down. I'll wrap that, put that back on, connect the coupler back underneath because it's super loud because it's not going through the muffler at all right now. But fix up those little things and see how it adjusted it. So when I was driving around there, you could see that this wheel was super wobbly. It was going, back and forth, tilting. You could tell that the rim wasn't straight or something wasn't straight. Since in the last video, I rebuilt the rear end, new bearings in the wheel hubs, new suspension, all that stuff, making sure that's all good. I don't think it's due to any of that. So I really think it's down to our rim, and I really think it's that because, well, if we look at this clip from when I put these tires on these rims, so that wasn't me bending it out of shape. That was me trying to bend it back into shape. This rim had a bit of a wobble in it, and I thought I could hit it just a little bit, or I thought it wasn't going to be that much of a bad effect. It looked a little bent. But I guess over the course of being extended all the way out to here, that little bend scales up as you go further out, so it moves a lot. So the idea is, we can't use this rim. I think it's bad. I think the other side is probably fine. The fronts are definitely fine. But this one right here, no good. So I went on eBay and I bought myself a new rim. And by new, I mean used. Since this exact rim was used from 96 to 01, I believe. Because 02 was, they changed it to a 12-inch rim. And this is a 10-inch rim. This is a 2000-year rim. And this is, like I said, the 96-year rim. So this should be exactly the same. It's actually in a lot better condition than all of the other rims, so that's good. I am just going to take this tire off, put it back on the tire machine, take this rubber off, and try and put it back on this one, and then reinstall. Obviously, I'm going to have to repaint this one like I did the others, but there isn't rust on this one like the other ones had, so that's a bonus. air compressor that I would fill this up with is dead. So, I'm first gonna try and do this with a little portable car air pump to see if I can do it. I doubt it's fast enough, but I'll give it a shot. That's operating pressure. No wobble at all now. Oh, that's fantastic. Realistically, that only took an hour. That's to replace the valve stems and the rim in this tire. So that's not that bad at, you know, one of those DIY little tire setups. But now let's see how it rolls. That's pretty dead center. It does move a little bit. So I have a feeling that this rim might also be bent, which is sad considering I only bought one rim. I just didn't realize it was going to be that true. It might have to be another day. Lined up, lined up, lined up, lined up. All of them are flat now. Also, you can see I had to cut this one twice to get that little sliver in there. So that looks a lot better. Also, this one was again cut and welded to fix a twist in it that was causing issues with getting that bolted in. But now this sits flat. Let's see if it fits back onto the four-wheeler. I couldn't get the bolts all the way in on all 8 mounting points. So I went in with a tap on all the ones where it got stuck on and just kind of cleaned it out. This one in particular was absolutely caked with like some kind of an adhesive or something, because I could only get it maybe like a 1/4 inch in. Now it can go all the way in, which is perfect. So like I said, I've cleaned up all of them, so now I can actually get the exhaust on. So I just took the manifold back off the four-wheeler and I bought this box of heat wrap. Now I have 50 feet here. This is going to be way more than I need. Hopefully I don't go through that much. I'm thinking I might go through one whole roll. But the idea is I'm going to wrap around all of the tubing here. And the reason why I feel like I need to do that is because originally, this bigger tubing, remember what we saw before, this up here is actually a big tube with a smaller tube running through it. And that smaller tube is this tube right here. So when I test ran it before, this stuff gets very hot very quickly. This tubing takes a little bit longer to warm up, just because it's got a little bit of an air insulator in between this tubing and, well, the outside tubing. And so, now that I've removed all that tubing, I feel like I need to add something back to retain that kind of insulating property that this tubing had. And so that's what the heat wrap is going to end up being for, so just kind of keep the heat in, and also to risk anything else touching it like this would have. Yep, so I got my mask, gloves, and then to make sure all this is tight on here, I'm using these metal zip ties. Don't think I've ever used the metal version of a zip tie before, so that might be a little interesting to try out. But I have 2 ledges here. I have this big outer ledge, and then actually directly on the tube here. I don't think I can put it on the outer ledge just because I want to be able to have this slip down a little bit. And if I put it right on the outer ledge, I don't know if I can get this over it anymore. So, like I said, I'm going to try and do it on the smaller tubing down here. Go up from there. Really good. So, now I just have to go through, do the other 3, and then somehow have them all wrapped back up here. Well, I think I just finished wrapping it up. I ended up going each individual tube, wrap these around underneath, wrap these around here, and then at the very end, wrapped all 4 around. I left a little bit of gap here because I have to have some for clearance underneath. So this is all the same height. If I went any further down, it would have bumped up, and I would have made it the lowest point on the whole thing. And I'd rather have, you know, this fabric not be the lowest point on the whole thing. So I stopped it there. The entire thing from here all the way up to the flange is completely covered. I think it came out pretty darn good. Still got some gap in there. I like that I didn't just fully wrap it around right here. There would have been a lot of dead space in here, and I just don't think it would have looked as nice. But yeah, keeping that separate, I really like that. You can see I did get a rip in my glove. This is my second pair of gloves. This stuff is super abrasive, and I can feel my skin right here tingling because of all the little fibers. I am so glad I'm wearing a dust mask right now. But yeah, like I said, this is my second pair of gloves to do this whole thing. I ended up having to use a second roll. Not much of it, but a little bit of it. So this stuff goes through a lot of footage. So I probably used about 30 feet of exhaust wrap on this. Tomorrow the exhaust silicone spray is coming, so I can spray this down. Because apparently if you run this without that, this whole thing turns like a white because it's not sealed properly. So like I said, that's arriving tomorrow. I'll spray it, then I can put it back onto the four-wheel. You can really see this thing turn from gray to black, so it's nice to know where you've gone over. So it's been a few days. It's dried from after spraying it a few times. Now I just gotta take off all of the masking tape, and I'm going to mount it up to the four-wheeler. Yeah, I think that looks really good. I like that. So you can see right now, that is the muffler going back. That is just... Right now, that's just kind of hanging there. So I need to loosen that bolt right there, and so I can slide the whole muffler back a little bit, so I can get the manifold in, so I can then slide this into the manifold, because it is much easier to move the muffler than the manifold. That is tight. And that is how simple it should be to put the muffler on this thing. Really just kind of bolt it into the front, bolt it in down there, bolt it in the rear. Oh, good. So now, let's hear what it sounds like on a startup. Wow, that's a deep tone. Warm, warm, cold, cold. Only these two are running. But I don't feel any exhaust puffs. So, obviously, this is not a scientific test, but it's better than what it was before. Reminder, this is only on 2 cylinders. Cylinders 2 and 4. For some reason, cylinders 1 and 3 are not firing. The fact now that I know that 2 of my 4 cylinders are not running explains a lot. I'm gonna have to figure out why that's happening, because this has been running for like 5 minutes, and cylinders 2 and 4, way up the temp. Cylinders 1 and 3, nothing. So I'm gonna have to figure out why that is. I have a few first approaches I want to do in that. So, you know, pulling the spark plugs, checking those, and checking compression. I'm pretty sure it's not the coil packs, because pack 1 is doing 1 and 4, and pack 2 is doing 2 and 3. So each coil is doing a cylinder that's working, and that's not. The The fact that I have two that are not working makes me wonder if it's something to do with the carburetor, considering it's already running rough. If it just can't do it. I do wonder if the lugging is because 2 cylinders are firing, and then it's waiting for 2, and then 2 cylinders fire. Because remember, it's a 4-stroke, so it has to go around twice, and if it's only firing 2 out of the total 4 times it's supposed to, the 2 on 1 rotation, nothing for 1 rotation, 2 on 1 rotation, back and forth, then I think that's explaining the lugging. Which, don't get me wrong, the rim, that still needs to get fixed. I'm not feeling the swaying back and forth, so hopefully this rim fix that. Hopefully I don't have to replace that one. I might just still, because one bent rim, the other one most likely is. Well, that's another check mark for the last 5 or so percent, 5 to 10% to do on this. Now what I have to do, before I get to engine tuning and everything and test driving it around, I need to fix the brakes. My last fix obviously didn't do it. So this dual master brake cylinder idea, clearly this bracket didn't end up working, so that's not the greatest. However, though, I do have a much better solution, and it's probably one that most people have already been thinking, why the heck did I replace, the brake master cylinder from the one of the rear of the motorcycle? And that's really just because I thought this would be compact. You can see how I can get this positioned vertically so I'd have enough room. And also, when we look at the old brake master cylinder from the Polaris, if I did the clutch pedal with the original handlebar mount, why don't I do that with the brake pedal? Traditionally, this part, the reservoir is facing upwards, so when you pump it, it can pull fluid straight down, gravity feed. That's kind of why I use the motorcycle rear master brakes, because the reservoir you could angle at pretty much any angle that you needed to. While this one, you kind of have to bleed it at its side, and then you can kind of mount it upright. I know some people do that. I think that might be rough later on if you get, any kind of air in there, then it's going to get trapped over here on a side, which, if you lean, it might be some pickup issues. Anyway, I just don't like that. But I figured I might as well just give it a shot, considering I already have this. And you can see that's super loose. That is because the piston on the inside is not returning. And so I took off the cap here, and you can see that was super rusty. This one broke off, which is great, considering I was only using, when I open inside, yeah, it's just caked on powder, and it's just gross in there. And I'm just not going to use that. So I was going to try and rebuild this, but looks like that, for me, is not an option. Well, that's just not in really good condition at all, either. So I figured, why not just buy a new Polaris brake front master cylinder? And so, that's what I did. And here it is. This is the handlebars from the original Polaris, and, I just put it on there, and, I put fluid in it, I gave it a few pumps. I have not even brake bled it. Like, there must be serious air in there, because I literally just attached it, filled it up, pressured it a few times, probably pushed a bunch of air in the line. There's also a parking brake built in to this handlebar, which is awesome, because right now, like I said, it's not even brake bled yet, and come on, I can get it to move a little bit. But for having air in the lines, and it actually not be able to roll when it is brake bled, this thing is going to have amazing brakes. So we look back at the handlebars, you can see that it's already been chopped off once, and if you remember right, that was for the clutch. So the clutch pedal is actually the original handlebar clutch, and so I think I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to cut the other part of the handlebar off and weld that tube also underneath, and so it's really literally just going to be both hand controls, one from the motorcycle, one from the Polaris. And so that's going to be my clutch, brake, and gas will be the pedal I made here. I still want to change the angle of this, but otherwise that simplified a lot. Got rid of all of this double manifold nonsense, and who would have guessed? Brake master cylinder that's for this stuff works for this stuff. Also, to just show you that it's not like permanently locked, it's actually on an incline a little bit. Just like that. You can see now that we have our clutch, we have our brake, we have our gas. That's all in. Let's see, I should be able to roll all this forward and back, and then none. And then let's see how hard it is to get the parking brake on. You're gonna press this down, pull that tab up. Now the parking brake is on. Okay, then you press it down, and it just delatches. Okay, so you just gotta pull up a little bit right there. That's actually very fair. I like that. I know I'm still only running on 2 cylinders, and I have a guess of why at this point, but I just want to see if the brakes work. I'm just curious if I could go forward and back a little bit. Okay, well, given that, it still needs tuning. At least the brakes work. I still need to bleed them, but still, that's certainly a lot better than what I had even before. I know kind of I've already missed it, but this one was smoking like crazy because, well, it's supposed to when it's brand new wrap, but that's cylinder 1. That's warm. That's definitely warm. That's cold. That's hot. That's hot. So now just cylinder 3 is not running. So why the heck is that one running now? I didn't change anything. Plus I was getting a bit of a backfire, and as far as I'm aware, I didn't replace these plugs. So I don't know how old these spark plugs are. So I think I should take all the plugs out, do a compression test on all of them, put all new plugs in, just kind of see where that goes. Well, I put the brake in, and I was going to put this thing into the garage, and I was like, you know what, I might as well just drive it into the garage, because, you know, why not? And all 4 cylinders started firing. Before I had to turn up the throttle idle screw, and I think it was just because before it just wasn't idling high enough because it was only on 2 cylinders. Now that all 4 are running, it idles at like 3,000 RPM, which is way too high, so I need to turn that down. It's a little hot to get my hand in there at the moment. I also adjusted the chain tightness, and that helped a ton. I think there's a lot of binding in there. Also, I will note there's 2 issues. I absolutely need a new rim on that tire. It still wobbles like crazy, and I can feel it coming from over there. Because this used to have a CVT, there was always a little bit of tension on the belt spinning, so the transmission would kick on. Now, even when I have my foot all the way on the clutch, because it's a wet clutch and it's still moving like a torque converter almost, like a hydraulic torque converter, that even when the clutch is all the way in and I put into gear, it'll go thunk, because the chain will still be spinning a little bit and there's still momentum to that. So when it goes in, it lunges you forward a little bit. Also, I think I might have cooked the brakes going up because I forgot I left the parking brake on when driving up the driveway. Oops. Guess that means that the brake pads are worn in a little bit. Otherwise though, when pressing the brakes up on the street, braked absolutely just fine. No issues there. a lot of confidence. When I press the brake pedal down, it feels like it stops. It doesn't feel squishy at all. When I push it, it literally just, it stops. It's a wall, which is good. That's really good. That means that whatever air that's there is either very, very minimal, if not none. I don't know how I got lucky with that, but I guess I did. Because I made this chain drive, I know I can change out the sprockets on it, so I can actually make it go faster per the engine RPM or vice versa. To get it to the speeds that match on the speedometer, I know I'm going to have to put a bigger gear on the engine side to make it go faster, but I'm going to be honest, I don't want it to go faster, but I do know to make it go around 30, 35-ish miles per hour. That's 6 gear, like 7,000 RPM. So, yeah, the gearing is off. It does not need to be higher right now. It does not drive smooth enough. That rim kills all of it. The frame needs to be welded. Oh, right, that's the other part. These bolts that are here in the back, so the bottom of the frame is completely original. The top of the frame that I cut up and made it wider, I don't think in the back it can be bolted, because I can feel the bolts shift in the hole that they're bolted through when I accelerate. And when you brake, you can feel it slip back. So I'm not really happy, per se, about that. So I might have to figure out some way to weld in the top of the frame with still being able to get the engine out if I need to, because that is a concern. I can feel the chain slack. I might have to look into the chain tensioner a little bit. I think it's more of the jack shaft side than the main driven chain that I put the tensioner on earlier. I went through a decent bit of gas with that little bit, so I know the carburetors are not right. I probably went through a sixth of a tank, doing a little bit of testing here, and then driving up on the road and back, which I think this is a 2. This might be a 2-gallon tank. I'll have to double check. But a third of a gallon is a lot to go through for that little bit. So my jetting is probably really rich, I would imagine. But I would prefer rich over lean right now. But otherwise, it shifts fine, both motorcycle transmission side and transfer case side, besides the bit of the jerk that I mentioned, like, because the CVT isn't there anymore. But when you get up the speed, it's actually smooth. I'm actually legitimately impressed by how smooth it felt like. When you got down to some of the slower speeds, that rim, you can start to really feel it. You can still feel it on a higher end. Otherwise, though, the clutch works, the brakes work, the gas works. The steering could be better. Because of the reverse Ackerman, you can't take sharp turns. The tires will go sharp, they'll turn sharp, but again, whichever way you're turning, the one that's supposed to turn the most, so if you're turning this way, if you're turning left, this tire should turn more than this one, and I'm getting reverse of that. So this tire will bind and will cause braking to happen. Also, I can tell when I'm going faster that the toe in and out on the front tires are off, because I can hear them rubbing a little bit on the road. So I'm going to have to adjust that. Ideally, the next things I need to do, take the top frame off, weld it all up to how I want it, tighten everything the way it should be to be normally driven, because right now some things, I'm not gonna lie, are still tacked, and then just tidy up some wires, get it painted, you know, the rim, doing the rim as well. But yeah, no, I mean, that was a lot of good progress. I'm just excited the brakes got done today. I don't know how well you can see this bolt right here. That's for the ball joint for the steering, and I was looking back some of the footage and I was realizing this tire went like this a little bit when I did a hard turn, and then I realized that bolt is loose. It's actually loose. So this tire, part of that scrubbing we were hearing was this tire going in and out. That's obviously not good at all. Also, when I was shifting, you could hear the back tire skid a little bit. So, yeah. So that's the wobbly rim. Here's another used one from eBay. Another 30 bucks. Guess I'm gonna switch that one out. See if that fixes the wobble issue. I'm really gonna have to paint both of these rear rims. This one especially. That only took me about half an hour to set up the tire machine, actually bring the tire over, get everything set up, take off the tire, put the new one on, of course counting, cleaning the rims and everything, and putting it back on. Yeah, roughly half an hour. So I don't know what took me so long before. but now when I spin it, it should be a lot better. And I'll say it is. There's definitely still a lump somewhere, so this rim isn't perfect, but it's certainly a lot better than it was. Here, let me show you. Absolutely just spilling fuel out over here. So you can see there that it idled at like 3 grand for a second and then fell down to about 1,000. I think what that is happening is when I throttle it, it starts running right and all cylinders start running. And then when a cylinder drops or whatever, or a cylinder or 2 drops, it goes back down to 1,000 RPM. So it's probably a tuning thing, not a spark thing. Well, it definitely is if fuel's just spewing out of it, you know. Yeah, so cylinders 1, 2, and 4 are firing, not cylinder 3. To be entirely honest, I really don't want to do this next step. The pedals are in, now that most of the gauges are in, the steering is all in, all that fun stuff. The next step I actually need to do, to actually feel comfortable driving this, is this frame is not fully welded in. I know I've mentioned this a handful of times, but it's just straight up not. Like, I got 1 tack here, 2 tacks right here, 2 tacks right here, 2 right there, and it's the same on the other side for the rear end. In the front, a tack here, a tack there, and a tack over here. So 3 tacks are holding this whole front part in, same on the other side. So that little bit I drove on the road, I really shouldn't have done, but I did it anyway. So I'm going to have to get the crane out, lift up the front end, take out the whole top frame, weld it up, and put it back in. I really don't want to do that, because it requires taking apart so much stuff that I just don't want to do. But I have time, and I have the stuff to do it, so I just have to do it. I don't know how many times I've picked up this front end with this, but obviously that was a first. Yikes. Okay, just to show you what that did, it landed on this, so that's gonna have to be bent back. Yeah, that's not a hook. That was a loop. That was an eye hook. Wow. That's where it landed. And I was standing about right here, so... So, I guess I'm gonna have to find a better, safer way to lift this front end, because apparently, I guess it weighs more, or I've been getting lucky. For reference, this is what one of those hooks is supposed to look like. So, I guess, maybe I weld this, and then replace it? Something tells me that's still a really bad idea, because I don't have my cherry picker here, which would be ideal to do this. So, if you're thinking I should go get that guy over there, and then jack the front end up, I removed that capability by putting the muffler in. The muffler covers the point where you have to jack up the frame from. And I knew that was an issue. I just thought taking the manifold off would be easier than it actually is. Plus it's hot because it was just running. I'm just gonna weld that up and replace the used to be eye hook that's in the ceiling. Okay, well, there we go. All welded up. That's still very hot. Well, before I was saying that I was hearing a clank in the rear, and I thought it was this frame sliding back. Turns out I must have been right, because look, right there, and I guess also at the top of this one right there. Kind of hard to see on camera, but it's completely stripped there, which means that that frame, that's pretty much an inch down from where it's at. And so it must be hitting that and rubbing against it, so I might have to redesign how that frame mounts back there. I really can't weld it, so I'm going to have to figure out, I guess, a different way of bolting it in. But I can't have it sliding around to where it's you know, getting to the point where it's marring threads up, so that's not good. This might be my least favorite part. This right here. I really don't want to have to take this out. This will be an absolute pain to get back in. So now I can weld up all in here, under here, back there, get that all strengthened up, because right now it's just tack, 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 with awful welds when I was first learning. Oh yeah, and welding and all this, important. I just want to show you these with fully welded and then just tacked from before. This is what I've been riding it with. So tack there, tack there, tack there, and then 4 little tacks right there. So now it's welded all the way around, welded all the way on the other side. That's been welded all the way up. Each sides have been welding all the way up to the sides. So this one's a lot stronger than this one, so I will weld this one up to get back to that level. Okay, so these are both now cool to the touch. You can see this one's all been welded up. So I'm going to take these two and the frame that's right here off frame and just spray paint it the same gloss that I've been spray painting the rims. And hopefully I can get this to a level of dry that I can put it back onto the frame tonight. I just wanted to show a quick comparison of that one painted and this one not. Oh my god, does that one look so much worse not painted. Yep, so get that painted up and see how they all look. So while the rest of the parts were taken off and I painted them, I also painted up some of the frame parts. I know this is 2 different types of paint. I'm going to end up painting the whole thing this color, but I just have to get to the rest of it. For now, I just need to get to the parts that are going to actually get hidden. So it'll be this part here. I painted all down here, so that's all shiny. And then I also painted some of this rear suspension stuff that's going to get covered up, especially in there that was all rusty. And so I got that all clean. Down there got pretty much all cleaned and everything. And like I said, both of these got painted up. So there's still a lot of the frame, obviously, that needs to get painted. I'm not going to do that at this exact moment just because I want to get this frame together, because I have some changes I want to make and some things I want to test out on this first. So let's take a look at what I changed or what I put back on. The front right shock support, that's all been painted black. The front left shock support, the whole frame that wraps around, it's all been painted black. The footwells, the rear of the frame over here, even underneath the seat, that's been painted black. The right footwell has been painted black. The dry shaft cover, all of the center bits here and under there have been painted black. They kind of fit, you know, more of the theme that I've been going with this one. I still have to paint all this stuff up here. A lot of this still has to be finished welding too. I know that the bearing that's down there, the plate that's bolted onto, is not finished welding up. That's for steering. Also, the steering linkage, you can see a little bit of movement. That's because these nuts keep getting loose. I don't know why. I tighten them up all the way and they keep coming undone. So either I'll have to Loctite them in, or maybe I'll just put a quick tack on it. But I really don't want to do that because that'd make getting this out an absolute pain. So I'll probably just put some blue Loctite or something. That way, so all this looseness can be fixed. Because all that steering wheel movement right there, that's just due to this one U-joint not being tightened. So that's where all that play is coming from. You can see down there, this isn't moving when I'm doing all that. So definitely right here. But seems to be looking way better. I really like that it doesn't look like it's just covered in rust, which under the paint I tried to get as much of it cleaned as I could, but at least it's covered. So this is the front right control arm, the steering, and I realized that I cranked down on this ball joint to get it really tight, and it's still moving in that hole. And I looked over here and I can see that that nut and threaded part of the ball joint, a lot bigger than this one. That one's really small. That one's pretty big. So I think that since I stole these off of the original Polaris Sportsman 500, someone might have put the wrong ball joint on this side. I'm kind of surprised, but it could, and I think that's why I have slop in this side. It's not great, but I might have to buy another one of those. For now, I think we should get to the next step. Now, because the tuning of this is so far off, Like, remember, it's only running on maybe 2 to 3 cylinders until it warms up all the way, and then I'm running on 4, and then it feels like it's super rich. What I did do is I bought this air-to-fuel ratio meter, and it says it's a wideband sensor. Pretty sure this is actually a narrowband sensor, but these are compatible with each other. And so this guy is threaded. It's got a little bit of anti-seize on there, it seems like. But this is supposed to fit right into our exhaust. And how do I know that? Because when I was welding the exhaust up, I welded this bung in. That's the same thread size as our narrowband sensor. So, what I'm going to do is take out that bung, put this guy in there, and then wire this up and put the other gauge pod somewhere over here. I guess because I did so much welding on it, those threads became crusty. This is kind of times where it makes me really happy that I buy metric and SAE for this kind of stuff, because all of my wrenches here goes up to 3/4 inch. This wrench here, which is from the brake line set that I had, this is my only one that I have, the largest one I have, a 22 millimeter. So, and that's the right size. So, thankfully I have this, because I don't know how else I would have gotten this. At least I'll give it an attempt. Okay, well there we go. That's all mine snugged on. Give you an image of that. There we go. This now is going to come around here, probably go up here somehow, and go up into here into this rat's nest that I need to still fix. I'll probably put it on one of the accessory switches, or maybe I'll have it turned wired on to when I hit the main power there, that it just turns on. Maybe I'll just wire it up with the gauges. That might make more sense. There is a resistive element in there, so I do have to be watchful of how much amperage that pulls. I don't want the accumulation of that to pull everything, but I think there's like a 5 amps fuse on that, and this pulls like 0.1, 0.2 amps, so I'll probably be fine there, but I do want to double check. So let me get that wired up here. So it started raining outside, but I came inside and I put this wiring harness together. So basically this is to the O2 sensor, and that just splits off. Some of it goes to the air-to-fuel ratio gauge, and then here's our main power. So realistically, all I have to do is connect this to the key switch or to the ignition switch, whichever one I want to do, and then this will turn on and it'll automatically start warming up the O2 sensor. That way, so when you have the key on, none of this is on, but when you flick the run switch, then this all turns on and the heater is running. That way, for whatever reason, if that key needs to be on, it can do whatever the heck it needs to, but as long as the main kill switch is off, this will be off. Okay, so you can see this little gauge right here. It's not mounted, I just have it sitting there for the second. You can see that I have the plug coming up down here. I haven't cable managed any of this. This is just kind of down here right now. So it comes up, it goes right into this main power switch, and then it just runs up to here, and that's really all it is. This is the first time I've turned it on with everything plugged in. Let's go on. That shouldn't be on yet until I flip this. And so we're seeing that we're around 11.4 volts, and you can see that my ratio says about 18, about 17. That's just because, you know, the engine's not running right now. If I ran it, oh, yep, see there, it drops down to 20. Just because, yeah, there's nothing going through there. This is really cool, so I can actually see my voltage. So if I got it running, I could actually probably see it go up the charging voltage. So that way, so I don't have to check my battery, you know, with the multimeter or the built-in display that's on this smart one. So yeah, and you just flick this off, that turns off, and that's just for, because this is connected to the heating element, I might not always want it on, that when other things are on. And plus, you only really need to see the air-to-fuel ratio when it's actually running, which is when that run switch is actually on. So I still have to do some wiring tidying up here, but still, I got this mounted a little bit. So now when we turn on that, and I flick the switch down here, that, you can see that we have our gauge on, and it's nice and centered right where the original key switch was. So I think that looks pretty good, and I'm going to work with it like that. Now if we look at the chain on the left-hand side, we have a 12 tooth here, and a 16 tooth over there, and then the idler doesn't matter. I think it's something like a 13 or something, but again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the gearing ratio. However, these two do. So since this is a smaller count than the rear count, because this is the motorcycle engine side, the powered side, it's getting a gear reduction. That transfer case is also reducing the ratio by, I can't remember, but it's more than the 3-to-1 than the motorcycle originally had, especially with combination of the 12, the 16 tooth gears here. So, since I put this in 6 gear high range, and it did about 7,000 RPM, and this thing felt like it was going about 25 miles per hour, it's way reduced. So I need some way to actually increase this gear ratio. That's either get a smaller rear sprocket there, which I can't do, that's a small size that'll fit that 1.5 inch shaft, or I put a bigger main gear over here. So like I said, that's a 12 tooth, and this is what's going to replace it. It's a 30 tooth. So this will increase our gearing ratio by 2.5 times, because this is 2.5 times bigger than the 12 tooth. So that 2.5 times means at 6 gear, 7,000 RPM, it'll be about 2.5 times faster than 25 miles per hour, which is about, what is that, about 62.5-ish miles per hour. So that's still pretty good top speed. I don't really want to be going any faster than that on this, so maybe later I can find another one of these that's bigger. This is just the biggest immediate one I could find that I felt comfortable with. So the actual gear ratio will be 30 to 16. 30 divided by 16 is pretty close to 2. And that's a lot better than 12 divided by 16, which is 3/4. So I need to pop off this chain tensioner right here. I need to find the master link, remove it, take off this sprocket, put the new one on. Then I need to extend the chain a little bit. That way so we can make this a little bit longer to fit the bigger circumference that this has. That might be one link too long. See, this is why I didn't want to buy a full new chain yet. I'll buy a new chain after this one's been stretched and actually used, but I need to know the actual link count, so I'm just using whatever little bit left of chain that I have from buying this originally to actually figure out how long it needs to be. So that's the tensioner at full extension, and we're still loose. So I need to remove one more notch. So this will actually be up here, and yeah, it looks to be a lot tighter. One more notch off this. Instead of 5 links, it's 4 links. There we go. Now let's get these 2 master links on. Yes, I realize that I should only have 1. There we go. Now I just gotta get the chain tensioner back on and these set screws tightened down. There we go. This is the old wood seat that I put in there, and it fits perfect. And you have plenty of seating room left and right. The only issue is that when you're driving this, I didn't like the back of the seat. It was too stiff, too hard, too flat. Steering wise, I mean, your right foot just has to be higher than the other just because of the drive shaft, but there's too much wiggle room in this. You can easily jump out, but when you're normally driving any kind of sway, you feel it in this. So I need to somehow replace this with something that holds you in better. So I bought a bucket seat, and that's too tall. So if I remove the wood and put this in instead, I can get it to go about 1.5 inches lower than it was because this is shaped down. So this part can mount to the front rail here, and the part that dips down here can go down into the whole cavity a little bit. I just have to be careful to not get close to the actual shifting linkages into the battery compartment. So if I put it like this, these 2 front parts actually touch the front rail, and the 2 back holes touch the rear rail. And I'm about 1.5 inches away from the side mounting holes on the seat. So I think that's going to fit quite nicely. Yeah, and that holds you in there quite nice. It tilts you a little bit more forward than you want to, but honestly, the fix that swaying motion, I'll take that. I can move the seat a little bit further back. Yep. Now we're really close to the front here. Let's see how that fits. Oh yeah, way more knee room. At least it feels like it. This thing really is like a parts bucket because Suzuki, it's all metric. The 4-wheeler Polaris is all imperial. So I'll be bolting on the brakes and gas and stuff, and that'll be in imperial. And then, the actual brake fittings will be in metric. Yet, the seat hardware is going to be in metric. And then the whole rest of the frame is going to be in imperial. So this whole thing is just a mix. So kind of what happens when you have 2 full different standards and a lot of bolts and nuts from other projects that I don't want to buy more for. So that seat will be metric. This is why you don't throw anything away. This was a scrap piece I cut off, I don't know how long ago, from a bed frame, and it was in my scrap parts bin, and this is the exact same size as I need for right in the back because it's very close to the rear frame and it fits in there perfect. Another reason why you don't throw anything away. So now that the bottom of the seat's bolted in, you can see that the top of it is still moving around. That's because the top 2 bolts are not in, and I don't know if I want to put those in at all, so you can lean a little bit, but I feel like fatigue of the seat might be an issue, so I guess I'll try and find some way to mount the sides in. That's the bottom of it. Now I need to drill out the holes for the top of them. You can see I welded in these little plates here, and that is where the hole goes through, right there in the seat. There is one on each side. This one's a little bit further out. The welding warped a little bit, but the seat can flex into that. So now I just have to center punch it on the other side, and I think I'm just gonna drill through that hole if I can, at least to get it started. Well, there we go. I'll repaint it back up. And only one bit of paint on me, I think. Oh, there's more. Little rubber washers, you know, distribute the weight and have a little bit of give to it, so I think that might work a lot better than just, you know, screw right on contact. Now, to mix it all up, like I said before, it's all mixed, so that's all metric M6, and this is 1/4 inch. There we go. Okay, let's give this a try. Some of this paint might be wet. I don't know. Oh, yeah, it does lean forward a bit more than I want. It just kind of hunts you forward, but honestly, there's not much I can do about that. That's the flattest it can go, really. Yeah, I really do want to lean back a little bit more. I could put a little bit of blocking in the front to raise it up, but the front is right on the edge. That feels good. The pedals are not an issue. Just reaching the steering wheel is not an issue. I got a little bit of bend still. But my main point is I fit in here. I feel snug. I don't feel like I'm going to fall out. I feel pretty secure to the frame. If I hold the brake, I can compress the front shock, because that's how far I can lean forward. So yeah, that feels pretty good. Also, one thing I do want to note on the brake pedal, the original plug that's from the Suzuki Bandit plugs right into the Polaris brake switch on the handlebar. So when I press the brakes now, the rear lights up just as before, no modifications whatsoever. Okay, next up. This brace right here never got fully welded in, so I just took off the oil cooler and I'm just gonna finish welding this in. I just bent the corners over closer to the frame, so now I just have to weld that up there, and a little bit right here. So might as well do that while the welder's out. Also, this set screw is just sitting up there, and it explains my massive excessive wobble up there. So now, not only did I weld in here, I also spray painted all of this, all the tubing, I masked it all off, painted from about here to there, down. I even painted the crossbar that holds in the front steering. Oh my God, did that look so much better. I also got some bolts to extend out the oil cooler a little bit, so we get a little bit of distance from that crossbar. It was too close to the actual radiator fins for me to be comfortable. That's all ready, so I'm gonna re-bolt that together right now. Okay, these are new washers and new screws. They have a little bit of rubber padding for a little bit of extra isolation, and that just spaces it out just enough to where that none of the frame or bolts actually touch the oil cooler. So there, I like that. That looks loads better. Yeah, look how shiny that looks now compared to that back bar over there. So I just got to keep doing this kind of thing to the rest of the frame. Realistically, the only part of this that hasn't been painted is this section right here, and then down the sides right over here. Otherwise, I pretty much got to the rest of the frame. As you can see here, I welded up that little mount that holds the steering wheel on. So now, that's not any play in it. I also went around here. I put in the rest of the set screws and tightened them down. Now I'm good. So now when I turn the steering wheel, there's no backlash in there. That feels really good. The only weirdness is in the knuckles here. You can see how it does that little bit of an extra movement, and I'm wondering if that's because there's an angle here between that straight and this angle's down. Is there like a double joint in there? Because it really seems like it. I really would only assume there was like one ball joint or something. But anyway, but there's like two moving things happening in there, and that's causing my steering to be a little bit funky too. But I figured since I do that, tighten down the chain a little bit more, I would pop off the back tires, come over here. This one I just painted. You can see that's all nice and shiny. This is the one I haven't. It's still dark, but you can see there's a bunch of rust in it, marks, you know, big rust coming through it. On the back side, it's even worse. You can see on this one, there's a big rust ring. So I'm just going around and giving those a good paint. See, and now they are all shiny on the inside. That's the inside. Here's the outside. Also shiny inside, outside. So now you can't tell they were covered in rust before. So once this dries up, I'll take off the tape and put it back on. So you can see the gauge cluster is not attached anymore. And that is because A, I wanted to paint that bracket that was on there. And B, I wanted to put in this electrical junction box. This is just a normal 6x6x4 junction box that you can get from Home Depot for like 20 bucks. Somewhere around that. And I just drilled some holes in it. Put some more of this loom on some of the wires to protect it. Same thing here for the O2 sensor. It goes all the way down to here and it's zip tied on. You can see I drilled a hole through the top. So there's a drain hole in the bottom of this in case the liquid ever gets in there as well. But that means I can put the lid on top. Also on the other side, this loom that comes in goes directly into the box now. And so that's nice and tight. And that goes all the way around. So now all those wires that were hanging around there are now inside the box. They're not dangling anywhere over here near the hot engine. Now we have the actual box to protect it. Of course, there's still some cables and stuff that run up the sides. Not much I can do about that. This is a speedometer cable. I think I need to replace this. But otherwise, all this stuff just kind of runs into where it needs to go. I do want to put some extra loom on some stuff that needs extra protecting, like, for example, this four-wheel drive hub wire, and this extra white wire that's down here that goes to the coils in the front. I want to make sure that's all protected, because that does run down to over here. But otherwise, for the harder part, that box is in. Since this is off, I might take off some of the steering stuff and paint some metal down here, because like we have exposed metal here. And this is all the old paint. It's kind of chipped up. You can see the color difference. There's quite a bit of a gloss. I'll get that done off camera and get that all reattached. So I've painted a little bit more. All the tubing down here, that's part of the original motorcycle frame. This has all been painted. That looks really nice. I painted all this front steering stuff. This isn't actually bolted on right now because I had to paint underneath it. It's all dried and everything. I even on this side painted all the way down there. You can see I still have some of my masking. Yep, so that's all been painted. And if you noticed, I'm actually missing the crossbar that's over here, because I also painted the mounts there and the other one right there. And that's because this cross beam I also painted, so that'll slip back in and bolt back on. The front dash I took out and painted that, so all that electronics get remounted to this. And additionally, the bracket that the speedometer and tachometer mount to. Also down here, if you can see, I took off the pedal and I painted this all up. I know I said I was going to cut and change the shape of it, but I can always repaint it later, and I haven't really decided how I want to reshape it. I want to drive it around and feel how it feels really. Maybe this isn't that bad, but I just don't like it. Otherwise, I think that covers all the painting of the entire frame, so that's really good. I just have to put it all back together, which I'm going to do really quick. Okay, it's all put back together. Have that cross beam in, it's all bolted in, all four of them over there. Have the transfer case shifter mounted in. The motorcycle transmission shifter is back in. Crossbars in, so the speedometers are back in. The gas pedal is mounted back in. And, oh yeah, I guess the regular dash bar. And then you can see everything now is painted. That took forever. So now, I'll just kind of pop this one back on there. And I did note when I took off one of these air filters that there's a lot of old gas just sitting at the very front of the carb. So I imagine it's not running well because, well, I guess it's been so long that I've had this sitting here that the carbs have gotten dirty again. So I'm going to have to pop those off, clean them up again, see if this thing is going to run right. Because it was running fine and then it wasn't. So I guess maybe it's just time for a carb clean. But you can see everything is back in place, and ooh, headlights are on. That'll be for another video. Oh, so we covered a lot in this video, a lot. I was gonna break this video up into 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts, but I just ended up making it one long video. one of the reasons why everything's been taking so long. There's other stuff that I'll cover in another video or two of why I've been gone for so long, but I've been doing stuff. I just spent like another $2,000 on the Leaf project, so trust me, that one's still getting worked on. Obviously this one is, and 3 other projects are also getting worked on. So it's just kind of a lot of time goes to different places, and a lot of real world developments have also happened in that time. So haven't had all the exact time that I've wanted for this, but hey, a lot got done, and I think this video is ready to go out. I was going to show test driving this, but since the carbs are all dirty and everything, I think I'm going to do a whole video of just testing this thing out, just doing the last like zip tying stuff down, because obviously that doesn't go there. I'll do most of that off camera and clean the carbs up, give this a test drive, make that its own video. But today, this thing is pretty much like 95% done, mechanically. I think that last 5% is just, like I said, zip tying some stuff, putting fluid in the front hub, checking the fluid in the rear transmission. The oil in the Bandit motors, that's perfectly fine. I changed that before all of it came out of the motorcycle originally, so that's brand new pretty much. And just making sure, you know, everything is tightened down, because obviously that steering bolt is not. But yeah, I'll do most of that off camera, and the next video will be actually testing this. I do have some more plans on this after doing all that, so trust me, after that video, I'm still working on this. I still want to do a full body for this thing. But I think for today, this is a good stopping point, so I can start working on some other stuff, because as you can probably bet, I'm kind of tired of working on this, but plenty of stuff still yet to do. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for waiting a handful of months for 2 other videos that I didn't feel like were ready to publish, so I came back to working on this. So anyway, thank you for sticking around. Shall see you in the next video.